Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Pursuing Excellence podcast. I'm your host, Jaden, and I'm here today with Professor Stewart Goodman at Georgia State University. He instructs Spanish there, and he also is my current Spanish instructor. Had him last year, and now I have him again. But Professor Goodman is joining us today for the podcast, and I appreciate him coming on. So, thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So, how are you doing, Professor? How's everything going with you?
Pretty good. Doing the classes. You took the class last semester was on campus, right? But now you're online. So
yeah,
different types of students doing it both on campus and online. So everything good.
Yeah. I was trying to get on campus, but it was a time conflict with one of my other classes, so I couldn't. So I can't get to see Professor Goodman this time around. So I'll just take the online class. Yeah,
I think my 1002 class was moved online. That campus class was moved online anyway, so it would have ended up the same for you, I guess.
Yeah. Well, hey. Well, that's that's interesting. So so can you just tell us a little bit about yourself, and how so our audience can get to know Stewart Goodman?
Yeah. So I teach Spanish, of course, at Georgia State University. The reason why I speak Spanish is because I grew up in Mexico. So I spent about 18 years there. My parents lived and worked in Mexico for that time. So, as far as Spanish is concerned, I sort of cheated while learning it. That's what I tell everyone, because, learning a language is not at all easy. The best way to do it is, of course, growing up and speaking it. Right. It is, of course, possible to do it, afterwards, but it's a lot tougher. But anyway, so I grew up in Mexico City, one of the biggest cities in the world. So that was pretty exciting. All my friends were from Mexico. So I was pretty well immersed in that culture. My family is from the U.S. So when it came time to go to college, my parents wanted me to have the whole university or college experience that we have here in the U.S., because around the world, it's obviously each country is very different, but in the U.S., that's a very big experience for kids coming into adulthood, I guess, to go to college, gain that independence. Because in Mexico and a lot of other countries, if you go to college, you're probably still living with your parents throughout, the whole ordeal. Because a lot of the colleges are in bigger cities. You're not going to move to an apartment within the same city if that's where you're going to college. You're just going to stay with your parents, keep expenses low, etc. So I ended up going to Auburn in Alabama, which was a very big change. I did not know anything about really tailgating and football and stuff like that. So that first, Saturday where there was a game, I was like, what's going on? But all in all, college was a great experience for me. I actually enjoyed my core courses, just learning new things in college. Then, I didn't really have an idea of what I wanted to do. I started out as a engineering or computer science, student. But, after taking a few math courses, I was like, so I actually switched to a international trade, like a business. It was sort of like a business minor with a Spanish major. Since, I already knew Spanish, that helped out a lot. But since I knew Spanish, I decided to take German as well. During my college years, one of the biggest things was studying abroad in Germany. That was a great experience, learning a new language. Even if I already knew Spanish, German is very different. So that was great. And, slowly I just kind of considered, having more of a career with languages. I did once I was done with my bachelor's, I did a master's degree there at Auburn as well, in Spanish. And then, after that, moved to Atlanta, with my wife. Well, she was my girlfriend at the time, wife now. Moved to Atlanta because she wanted to do her master's degree here, and I got a job at Georgia Perimeter College, which is now Georgia State, and I'm still here.
Yes, you are. So you mentioned German. So can you say something in German? I just want to, see like what.
Yeah, wie heißt du?
What does that mean?
I'm asking your name.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yeah, so it's ich heiße, right? Ich heiße Stewart.
So how you say it again?
Ich heiße.
Ich heiße. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So I probably won't be going to Germany anytime soon.
Yeah, I mean, I loved it there. It's the language is hard, but a lot of cultural things in Germany. Just a lot of things going on. Obviously, they have big cities, they have nice countryside and stuff like that. But yeah, it was nice. It was nice.
Yeah, I hear it is a nice place. So now you mentioned teaching, you're a college instructor. So what would you say are some, some challenges, of course, at instructing at this level, and some things like that make it, just a little hard for you sometimes if it does get hard.
Yeah, I mean, it is the college level, but the main Spanish courses I teach are core classes. So a lot of students are taking them because they have to and not necessarily because they want to, most people usually end up saying, yeah, I want to learn a new language. But, you throw them in a classroom and it's like a classroom, and it's like, oh, I have to study this. So, a lot of motivation kind of goes out the window when maybe you're doing it in the classroom, right? You're not walking the streets and just speaking Spanish spontaneously. It doesn't really happen that way, right? So yeah, maybe helping out with motivation with students taking a required course as opposed to just a fun course. Also making it fun, having a classroom inside is a lot different than, like I said, being out and talking to people. So that I would say that's kind of, the bigger challenges as far as, teaching college is the motivation and the keeping it fun at the same time aspect.
Yeah, I mean, because at the collegiate level, your students, you're adults. Everybody's adults. So, it's like there's only so much you can do to a point where they have to make the decision, or, we have to make the decision to come to class to do the work. At the end of the day, all you can do is to do your job as an instructor, teach, and make sure that we understand what's being taught and, of course, grade accordingly. But after that, it's like out of your hands, right?
Yeah, of course. And, a lot of people are thrown straight from high school into college, just like they went from elementary school to middle school. But, those 12 years of school, it was really, held by the hand. You know what I mean? You're really led. And if you don't pass, they're going to do whatever's necessary to get you to the next level. Where college, is something you're deciding to go to. You have to pay for it, right? So you got more responsibility, but it's also the responsibility to continue with college, to make the decision whether it's the right decision to go to college or if you'd rather be working. I actually, not necessarily because it was an active choice I made, but from high school to college, I took a year off and decided to work. So, I mean, it's not really a year off, but I did a year off of school, right? And I chose to work. And the reason why I did that personally was because I couldn't get in-state tuition anywhere because I had been living in Mexico. In order to get in-state tuition in Alabama, I had to live there for a year, work, pay taxes, and all that kind of stuff. So, maybe taking a break for some students might make sense, especially since you've gone through 12 years of schooling. It's going to be a little different than that college. Like you said, you jump into college and it's just a lot more responsibility. So, yeah.
Responsibility, yes, it is.
Mm-hmm.
We don't like it, but we have it, and it's just a part of life and growing up. So that's pretty much what it is. It's just part of life. So,
yeah.
But I like I say, man, do you think that now the notion that I'm sure you've heard like this narrative that, well, if you don't go to college and, you're not, you gotta go to college. I personally, I think that, if you have some kind of plan, and you know what exactly you want to do and you go make an effort to do what you have to do to get there, then maybe, because college isn't for everybody. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I completely agree that college is not for everybody. And I also would say definitely that college is not necessary for everybody, right? Because that's two different things. Some people, don't want to go and sit in a classroom, and that's fine. But you're completely right. If you have a plan and you have an idea of what you want to do, then, you might not need that degree. Right? A degree is always going to look good on a resume. If you're looking for a long career, maybe with a certain company and you need that degree, then definitely you're going to have to stick it out and go to college. But, if you're more of doing things on your own, business wise or whatever, or if you found a career that, entry level doesn't need a degree, then you might be wasting some time and money, right? And a lot of energy for sure, trying to get that degree just because people are telling you need a college degree. Now, most positions, I guess, it'll be easier to get that position if you have a degree, of course, but definitely not necessary for everybody. I don't think. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just something that it's kind of, I guess, forced in a lot of, kids' heads. Like, well, you got to go to college. You got to go to college.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes most of their parents went to college, or their family went to college, or they didn't, but now they want their children to do what they couldn't do. And I think, I tell people like, well, if it's not for you, then don't do it, because like you said, you're gonna be wasting time and money where you could be putting that into something that could help you to where you want to go in the path you want to take. But it's just having a plan. You have to have a plan. That's just, I think, important. You have a plan.
Yeah, and sometimes you do need to make a quick decision in terms of what you're doing with your life, but if you're not feeling like college right now, that doesn't mean you won't have the opportunity to go to college later on. In fact, you might be in a better position because a lot of people think, well, you're straight out of high school, you should go straight into college because you're already in that mindset. Now's the best time. But, you're pretty exhausted coming out of teenage years, just being in school for so long and just going back into the classroom isn't necessarily the best thing for everybody, And if you get a little break, if you're right out of high school, most people are, young, single, and can do any kind of work really and get some money in your pocket and just figure out what it's like to live on your own if you're able to do that without going to college, even if it's only for a year or two, and then you decide to go to college. I think it is a lot of times worth it for someone to just stop, and think what they want to do, because I'm pretty sure it's like this for most people, but it was definitely like this for me. How are you going to know what you want to do for the next, 20 or 30 years when you're 18? It's just
yeah. I mean, I think that's too big of an ask to put on somebody that age, like, and I think that's something that's put on a lot of people in my age group now. Like we don't. Well, I do, but a lot of us, don't necessarily have a full idea of what we want to do. But people expect you to already know exactly what you want to do at this age. So I think that's part of it too. But
yeah, and I was lucky in that sense that my I knew my parents were going to pay for college, at least for those 4 years, right? So, as far as financially, that was, a good decision I made. And even if I didn't know what I was going to do, those years, I guess, helped me, figure it out. Is that the best way to figure out what you want to do? It's different for everyone. Not everyone is lucky enough, as I was, to not have to worry about paying through college. Most people are going to have to pay through college. And a lot of things have changed. Like you said, older generations didn't necessarily, go to college as much as we do now, because now maybe more companies require that degree. But not necessarily, it's still valid to say, well, I want to do this instead of going to college. And also the financial aspect has changed, where financial aid is pretty much expected, right? Most people are on financial aid just because it's so easy to come by, I guess, in a sense. So there is a lot to think about in terms of how things are different now and what you can do, to kind of maximize your effort, I guess, in terms of what you're going to be doing for the next few years.
Yeah, I agree. So moving on to our little last segment here, do you feel that it's important for us as people to involve ourselves with different cultures and ethnicities? Of course, like you said, you lived in Mexico, and you visit other places. So, and how do you think that could be beneficial to us as human beings? Just surrounding ourselves with different cultures, different ethnicities, different ways of life. How that can help us.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that pretty much every learning experience is going to help you out, whether you realize it at that moment or not. You're just gaining these skills that you're not necessarily aware of. And learning about another culture is huge in terms of that. Because like you said, it's just another viewpoint, right? It's another world view. People are going to do things differently in different cultures, and that just adds to your skill set on how to do things. Because a lot of times, if we're focused on a problem, we're already within that problem and we see limited ways out of it. But if we have a wider view from past experiences, there might be more solutions to that problem than other people think existed, right? I mentioned that I studied abroad in Germany. I've also led study abroad programs here at Perimeter, and those are, for me, it was a highlight of my college career, and it's usually a highlight of any student's college career, just because a lot of people here in the U.S. especially just haven't gotten to travel abroad a lot. We're really focused on just kind of go, and not as focused on learning experiences and relationships. Forming relationships is very important. And you kind of see that with other cultures, how the family relationships are a lot more important and stuff. So it's just giving you a different view to every aspect, say, of your own life that you just maybe didn't even think about or consider. Like, oh, they do it like that, they have a big lunch instead of a big dinner, simple things like that just kind of help you to see things in a different light that'll help advance you personally and even better is hopefully improve relationships with people all around, right? So
yeah, and perspective. It's all perspective. Like seeing things from different light. Of course, being Americans, we tend to have like a pretty mainstream perspective on how we live our lives. You know what I mean? So versus like people maybe in places like Mexico or Spain or Japan or England, whatever it might be. Like it's just they view life differently, and they have customs that they practice that are different than ours. And you can even, you look at it like, oh, you know what, the way they do this, maybe that's why people over here live longer, or they might have, healthier lifestyles, things like that. So it's interesting.
yeah, and I mean, even seeing people be happy with a lot less, because most of the world is not as wealthy, as we are in the United States, but they might have that wealth and happiness, and relationships instead of material wealth. And just realizing those kind of things, will give you an insight into, a different way of doing things. And thinking of language specifically, I mean, language can benefit us personally with health, health, in later stages of life, obviously is very important. And language has been proven to help with things like Alzheimer's, right? Memory loss, stuff like that, just keeping your brain active. Just by studying a language not very long, activate something in your brain that helps you with that kind of stuff. So there are benefits, beyond just culture and the language itself, of course. So.
Yeah. So great. It's great, And I do have plans to travel myself as well one day and just see other places. Well, because they say that the experience is really nice, and just again to see those different ways of life. So, but now my last question for you, Professor. What is your favorite dessert and why? I just want to know that. Okay? I just want to know because I'm just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I really like ice cream.
Okay.
I don't know if it's I'm not too big on sweet stuff. I do like it a lot, and ice cream is definitely sweet, but I probably like the fat in the ice cream. I don't know. I like butter and things like that. So
hey, you wouldn't be a true American if you didn't.
Yeah. What about you?
Man, that's because I have a few favorites, so it's like I gotta pick one.
Yeah.
I might just have to go ice cream too. I mean, that's just like the number one thing for me. I do love ice cream, and like it's just it just satisfies you, and it just hits that spot, certain days, and you just it's good stress food.
and it's simple, right? I mean, you can. I make ice cream every now and then because I got a machine, but you can just go out and buy it. But you can have fancy stuff like flan, going to tiramisu, which is always good, but those are really good with ice cream too.
yeah, definitely. But Professor, I enjoyed talking to you today here on the podcast. It's great getting your insight on things, from a professor's point of view, in the collegiate world and everything. So it was good to get that from you, and we appreciate it, of course, you coming on today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's fun. It's good. I've never done a podcast like this.
Now you can say you've done a podcast. I mean, you've been in a couple different places around the world, and now you can say, "Hey, you know what? I've been on a podcast."
I did a podcast and put it on my resume.
Put on the resume. Put it right next to that degree.
Yeah.
But thanks again, Professor, and of course, I will be talking with you soon. I'm going to continue to do my best in your course as always.
Right.
So, but see you again. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.